Hampshire is now in the store and can be picked up for dubs, but before you consider buying her, there are a few big problems that I want to point out. First though, what is this thing? It's a British heavy cruiser with 10 guns. They are 203mm each, same size as the Albemarle. But this really strikes me as the love child of a Surrey and a Nelson. And once you see that, you can't unsee it, so you're welcome. No radar, no smoke, and weak armor that will leave you hiding in cover. That puts it firmly in a category as a damage farmer, but with a twist. You only have armor-piercing shells, no HE, no fires, no spamming. It's all about the armor-piercing shells. I have a full-length match I want to show you, but first let's showcase the power of this thing, and it's all about munching up cruisers who are showing too much broadside. The AP is special, of course. It has short fuse timers, which means it arms quicker, and improved penetration angles, kind of like a Minotaur, except with big 8-inch guns. The reload isn't nearly as fast as, say, Minnow, Neptune, or other 152mm light cruisers, but it's still pretty fast, 10.5 seconds. Compare that to Atago's 16-second reload with the same sized guns and the 2x5 configuration. Poor old Atago. I'm gonna keep bringing that ship up until she gets buffed. Now, in this clip, we ended up brawling a little bit, but this ship is not a brawler. Oh my gosh, she's painfully slow and cumbersome and has a weird, not great armor scheme. I'll show you here in a few. The other fantastic thing about these big AP shells is that they pin on DDs sometimes, meaning if you catch one slipping while you don't have HE to throw at them, the AP will spit them up and chew them out, as long as they're not completely bow onto you. Also, she has Albemarle torpedoes, 4 on each side, 10km range, blah blah blah. They're pretty average, but still nice to have and can be single fired because this is a British ship. The match I really want to show you highlights some of the power of this AP. It's nasty. How about a 31k salvo on a Vladivostok? Yeah, stay tuned for that. This match really highlights what this ship can do well and what it is really bad at. Now, I tested 2 builds. Azurlane Neptune for a full damage output build, and Azurlane Belfast with a similar setup. Both builds I used Makawa and Muller. Now I ended up settling on Azurlane Belfast just because she has full speed ahead. This ship is so freaking slow. 30 knots at a top speed. It means it's slower than the Weimar, it's slower than the Plymouth, it is firmly the turtle of the pack at tier 7. The base trait on Azurlane Belfast, yeah, it's a wash because you don't get smoke with this cruiser. I guess if you were playing with the destroyer in your div, it could be pretty useful. But I also think Neptune's 10% torp range skill in slot 2 is useless, so either way, either commander, you're gonna have something that is just kind of meh. Now if you're free to play, Bruce Fraser, sure. Put Piercer on there and Punch Through at the top of your list. Those are great skills to have on an all AP cruiser. And fully packed, usually for high tier cruisers, I use that. Now we're gonna highlight what the AP can do on a broadside Baltimore at 13.9 kilometers. Not quite yet, don't pay attention to that shot, just forget about that one. But let's look at the next shot and see what happens. Refill station. You could use that on this cruiser because, you know, it's a damage farming cruiser and that extra bit of reload is going to help. It's actually going to improve the reload 0.6 of a second on my build, so that could be worth it, but again, you're going to give up a heal and a sonar. Now, the first problem of this ship. Like most British cruisers, it is not very survivable. It's not Edinburgh with 30mm of battleship plating. Still, I wonder whose idea that was. I love it, and it's definitely not Albemarle with her super heals. Instead, it's really mediocre in this department. I will say this though, at least Hampshire has heals in Legends. On PC, this ship does not get a single heal, instead it gets DFAA. And I have to say, wow, the ship without heals would be super tragic. But we're sitting at 37,600 health points, it's a little bit below average. The heals are only gonna bring you back 6,300 health a piece, so also really not that great. And that brings us to the armor scheme. As we turn this big boat around and prepare to get out of this position, it's just not going to pan out for us. There are too many red ships pushing this direction, and I don't think I can stay here. We'll take one more salvo at the York, hopefully punish him, but then we need to be moving out. So the armor. It's weird. There is a lot of 25mm of armor to start with, a big giant nose, Basically, any battleship at this tier is going to have a fun time when they see this ship. There is 30mm of deck armor that's going to help protect your citadel, and 27mm on the side. It'll allow you to bounce 15-inch guns if you're angled properly. The citadel. It's weird, but in a good way. It's only below the smokestacks. It's literally not under a single gun turret, which I guess I don't understand. Where does Hampshire keep her ammunition? I guess I always thought that was part of the citadel, but oh well. Until players figure out where to aim at this ship, you're gonna get away with some silly stuff. People who aim waterline for the front turrets will likely be rewarded with full pins, but no catastrophic citadel damage, or they'll just overpin you. Now, once people figure it out or get lucky, the citadel is above the waterline and you better get your life jackets out. Now, unlike other Brit cruisers, you don't have smoke to hide behind, so it's really gonna come down to island camping like we're doing in this game. Now, you can kite, and I did a little bit of that, but mostly the open water was tragic, especially on the day when the ship first came out. I got focused a lot, so really island play was how I had my best games. The kiting angles are insanely good, and I don't know if you noticed yet or not, but B and C turrets on the front of the ship are 360-degree turrets, so it's very nice to keep them all on target. Awful agility. So if you are in the open water playing, you're going to have to rely on prop juking to dodge enemy shells. And again, I've explained this before in some of my videos, but if someone is going to shoot at you, basically you're in a stationary position and then you just slam it in full forward. And while we're on this subject, this is a skill I would highly recommend if you are a cruiser player. It allows you to keep full DPM builds on cruisers and not waste perks on agility. Really, it is the meta when it comes to damage cruisers. Pop by a stream sometime. I usually stream Sundays at 12, and I can show you how to sometimes properly do it. You might see me get depth struck too. The guns, they're super accurate. The shells group up very well. You guys saw that opening salvo on the Baltimore. It is a huge selling point of the Hampshire, I would have to say, as are the improved pin angles. Again, this means when most normal nations' AP shells would auto bounce on an angled ship, Hampshire might still pin. It's not as good as SAP, semi-armor piercing shells, but it is very good. And also, like mentioned, these short fuse timers help against DDs and broadside cruisers. It does lead to a disappointing amount of shatters on battleships, I have to say, so I would always recommend aiming for the upper belt. But as you can see on destroyers, it's pretty darn good. We're still getting some overpins, but getting some full pins thrown in there too. Problem number 2 with Hampshire. It falls into this category about the shells, AP only. Now we already see that this is beefed up AP. It's probably the best AP you can find on a cruiser on a ship like this, but it has problems. Ships like Northern Dragon, Z-44, other AP only ships that you need to be shooting the AP and not the HE, and to a lesser extent Brit light cruisers, is that enemies who know what they're doing can abuse this and abuse you. Bow tanking destroyers, for instance, you just can't kill it. There's nothing you can do. If you were in a 1v1 against a smart enemy DD captain like an Alan M. Sumner or something, he could just bow tank you and shoot you with his front gun. Same goes for any other ship in the game. As soon as an enemy starts angling to you, your ability to deal damage drops off the face of a cliff. Now yes, you just need to be smarter and position better to smack broadsides, I agree with that, but it doesn't always work out that way. And that brings me to the third problem. If you're wanting to position on a flank to get good shots on enemies, this ship is so slow. Getting into a flanking position is a great strategy in Hampshire, but it's really hampered by 30 knots of top speed. You're not going to beat anyone to a flank. Also, on some maps, this just isn't an option. You can't really get out to a flank, and you don't have smoke to set up in the middle of the map. Setting up in the middle can be kind of dangerous. Now, at this point in the match, I really needed the New Orleans dead so I could come back and try to help our Atlantico. Try to finish off the York, try to get some broadside shots on the Constellation, and I knew these ships were going to be pushing this Atlantico guy, but I kept getting distracted in the middle. There was the Udachi, there was the New Orleans, and now there is a Baltimore sitting out here, and all of them need to go. So props to the Atlantico player out there. I wish I could have helped you a little bit more. So I've spent most of this video talking crap on this ship, and I kinda like it. It's my job to point out flaws of a ship that's gonna cost you $100. As a community contributor for Wargaming, I have to test the product, showcase it, and if it's not a product I'd recommend for the majority of players, I need to say so, and that's the theme of this video for sure. But truthfully, I kind of enjoyed this ship. It was unique, and it was challenging. Anybody can take their minds out and have a good game. I think my dog Ripley could probably average 2K base games, and she doesn't have thumbs. Hampshire, though, requires some thinking and some skill to pull out good matches. And when you get those saucy AP salvos and great games, it really does feel good. So just so you know, before I put the nail in the coffin on this thing, deep down, I kind of like her. I wouldn't take her out into a comp match. There are just too many other really great cruisers at tier 7. Speaking of, by my count, now I think there are 37 cruisers at tier 7. I mean, that is a lot. At this point in the match, I'm trying to figure out why I'm spotted, but I think it was RGA on the Constellation who is sitting right there. I thought for sure the first salvo would kill him, but alas, it didn't, so we gotta finish this guy off. And then the second salvo, I was surprised by overpins. I really was hoping to pull the damage out of his stern, but overpins. We're gonna have to be careful for his torpedoes. Of course, Constellation has them. And also, I'm aware that there's probably a Vladivostok pushing in behind me. Now, the last big problem with Hampshire as we go to deal with this Vladivostok is that Plymouth is in the store. If you want a premium tier 7 cruiser and you're gonna throw down some big bucks to get it, Plymouth will do everything Hampshire will do, except much better. Plymouth has nearly the best AP DPM at the tier, and it has the options of smoke or radar, 16 guns with a 5.8 second reload, and British short fuse shells. It's one of the best cruisers at the tier. And not to mention the American Wichita is also for sale for the same price, and I would say it's a much better cruiser. Now, if you're looking for something unique and different to play, this could be for you. And here comes the Vladivostok. Now, we're saving a couple torpedoes here. The rear firing angles are decent. The front angles are not good, and we're gonna hope this guy overpins. I hope he shoots under the turrets. And yes, we absolutely get away with it. Look how many overpins that was. And now it's our turn. So we're gonna aim up a little bit. 31K and 4 citadels. Now here is where I make my mistake. I could have finished him off if I just stayed broadside and let these huge Soviet guns just keep overpinning me with their ridiculous velocity, but I didn't, and I'm beating myself up for this. I wanted to swing the ship around to get the torps off the other side, but this thing is so painfully slow and unmaneuverable. It was a dumb play, and it cost our team the game. I should have stayed broadside, let him overpin me, and pumped his superstructure full of shells, and it would have been an amazing, amazing match. Hampshire, to finish things off, it's a fun ship. It's not easy to play, nor is it exceptionally strong, but it is fun, and I'm kind of enjoying it, and I can't wait to take her out with some division mates too, where I have a little bit of support and see what this thing really can do. I would love to hear what you guys think of her, so do let me know in the comment section down below. Also, be sure to hit the like button, as that would help me out a lot, and sub so you don't miss any future content. This is Derka signing off. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.